so you're in the lab now with mushrooms. What is there certain strands of mushrooms that you're studying?
I'm doing something different with my procedure and the extraction process.
Is this something we should be taking every day?
I don't think we should truly lean on and rely on everything like a crutch, but I think we can use it as like a cognitive.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Talkin St. Pete. I am your host, Ryan Bogdan. And before we get into today's awesome guest, I want to let you know that this podcast is sponsored by Bogdan Homes. So if you know anyone looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate here in the greater Tampa Bay area, find our contact in the I've been jacking that up lately. In the description below, you'll find our number. It's all over. Look at Bogdan Homes on the Instagram. We're here to help. And now to our awesome guest, Sebastian Munevar. Been practicing his name all morning here. He is the Mad Mycologist on Instagram, a wealth of knowledge of all things mushrooms and how they help us live a better, healthy life. Is that a good description?
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty on point.
Okay.
Yeah, that's essentially what
all right.
are.
Well, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. And
honestly.
shout out to Debbie from Soul St. Pete. She's been connecting us to so many great people. So Debbie, appreciate you. So mushrooms. There's a lot of people, I mean, that maybe are watching. They're like, yeah, we're in the flow. We understand. And we're not just talking about the magic ones, folks.
That's what I get often.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So how many different, before we get into all that, what is it that you do and how did you get into it? Let's just go a little background on how you became the Mad Mycologist.
Yeah, so it's been quite a long journey. I mean, it started ever since I was like living in Spain at the time for 6 months and just dabbling in like laboratories, working with bacteria on petri dishes. And that just kind of ignited like my first love for lab work. Mm-hmm. Like I really felt like I was in my element there, working with gloves on, working in a flow hood with clean air pushing out. And like culturing like all these little fungus and bacteria.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I just happened to have a really cool professor, and he would just let me stay after class and after hours, just using the microscopes. Mm-hmm. And I was actually brewing kombucha in my closet at the time.
Okay.
So I'd be like, hey, can I bring my like kombucha in and look at it under the microscope and like see all the bacteria, like little fun like science projects. Mm-hmm. So that first ignited my interest in that, and eventually like. Fast forward a little bit, I came back to St. Pete, which I was going to college here at the time. And my mission was to really just explore the world of mushrooms more. And I feel like in Spain, like it was like that pinnacle point that I was like, you know what? Like I think if I go back home, like I want to find a way that I can like really understand if mushrooms is what I want to work with the rest of my life. And I think the best way to do that is just be hands-on.
Yeah.
So
what is it about mushrooms that's so intriguing? I mean, I understand a little bit. For those who are like, why are mushrooms so unique? I mean, there's how many different species? I mean, lay some facts on us. What is so fascinating about the fungi? Yeah,
so in terms of like species of mushrooms and fungi that we've discovered up until this day, it's probably around 100 to 300,000 different species that we've identified and know what their names are taxonomically. But scientists predict and kind of estimate that there's around 2 to 3 million that we still have yet to discover. So
crazy.
Yeah, a very untapped field.
And the piece that we see come out of the ground is just, what do they call that, the flower? What is that? I mean, because most of the mycelium is underground, no?
Yeah. Surprisingly enough, we all know of the mushrooms as that fruiting body that pops out of the soil, by a tree or out of a log. And people usually think that that's like the main body, it's what we see. When in reality, like 90% of that organism is really underground, like behind the scenes, myceliating through the soil. And that's pretty much what they are. Like the roots of the mushroom are the mycelium that are pretty much interconnected throughout the ecosystem.
And it's crazy, right? Because I know, I'm sure Paul Stamets, right? Everyone, he's like the god of
the wizard himself of mycology.
Yes. And some of the stories that he's told about mushrooms and how they communicate and interconnect with the trees and all. I mean, it's fascinating stuff.
Truly.
How do you go deep down that rabbit hole, or are you focused on like the health stuff? I mean, what is your focus when it comes to the mushroom?
Yeah, I feel like I live in two worlds at once, and I think that's why mushrooms is such it's so stimulating for me and makes me so passionate, because there's so much I can work with. I mean, I've been so deep in the rabbit hole of like it's this archetypal, ancestral, ancient organism that's been around for millions of years. 300 million years ago was some of the first and earliest records of mushrooms that we have. And these are mushrooms that were over 30 feet tall, like just as tall as trees.
Wow.
Before we had any trees on the land, it was just 30 feet tall mushrooms that were scattered across the earth. Yeah.
It's hard to imagine, right?
Yeah, just towering over you like
Yeah,
that.
it's
You know,
like
we just see them as these little,
right.
Things.
It's like dinosaur land.
Yeah, dinosaur mushrooms essentially,
Yeah.
just terraforming the planet, and I think that's what a lot of mushrooms kind of do on a cosmic level. Like they're kind of the first settlers on planets, and I think they just terraform those Earths and different planets to get them ready for other vegetation and wildlife to, you know,
Fascinating.
live and sustain.
Because when the fruiting body comes out of the ground, that's how the spores are spread, right? And that's how it continues to grow.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm shooting from the hip here.
Yeah,
so you fill in the gaps.
you got a good baseline.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much just like that. Like the fruiting body pops up. You have different kinds of mushrooms. You have mushrooms with gills under them, and each of those gill slices release millions and millions of spores in a day, and those spores can travel up to miles as well because they're just so light.
And that's why they don't hang around long, right? A mushroom pops up, they could be gone. They come up quick and they disappear fast.
Yeah, I mean the fruiting body is really just like a reproductive organ to spread its genetics across the land, and then those spores reach new logs or new soil to pretty much prime real estate they're looking for. So, and that's logs and soil.
Looking for logs.
Yeah, exactly. So, I could be like a real estate agent of the mushroom kingdom, helping them find new, homes.
I love that. That's cool. Okay, so you're in the lab now with mushrooms. What is there certain strands of mushrooms that you're studying?
Yeah, so my big three right now are lion's mane, reishi, and cordyceps.
Which lion's mane's pretty popular.
Yeah, lion's mane has been a buzzword, especially in St. Pete right now. A lot of like the herbal tea bars and like zero waste markets. A lot of people are asking for lion's mane because it's that hip like buzzword for brain boost, nootropic, and that's what people are looking for. I feel like nowadays.
Yeah, the brain boost nootropic. So what's the science behind the lion's mane and being a nootropic?
Yeah, definitely. So it's a powerful mushroom. I mean, it grows in this very much like brain-like form. And I feel like a lot of mushrooms, the form they take on kind of mirrors the part of the body that nourishes. There's a word for that. I can't remember what it is, but I feel like lion's mane has this brain-esque form as well as all of its cousins on the side that are very like branch-like and coral-like in the way they grow, kind of like the neurons in our brain. So a lot of the studies that they were doing on lion's mane was pretty much on like the oils and essential oils that come from the mushroom. And they're pretty much these oils called hericenones and erinacins. And those are kind of like, to give an analogy, it's kind of like the THC and CBD of cannabis.
Okay.
Those like major popular molecules that are active, and THC makes you feel elevated and high, and then the hericenones and erinacins in lion's mane are pretty much what give us that nootropic boost.
Okay.
And what they found is that specifically with the erinacins, that they pretty much stimulate the growth of new brain cells through NGF and BDNF. NGF is BDNF is brain-derived nootropic factor. That crosses the blood-brain barrier and stimulates the growth of new neurons in the brain as well as throughout the body. NGF is nerve growth factor, and they're pretty much both proteins that signal the body to stimulate neurogenesis.
And lion's mane holds both of those.
Lion's mane holds hericenones and erinacins as well as like a whole.
So is this something we
spectrum.
should be taking every day?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I would say you could take it 3 days in a row and then take 2 days off to give your tolerance a reset and break. I don't think we should truly lean on and rely on everything like a crutch, but I think we can use it as like a cognitive tool and kind of like something to help us open the mind, integrate new ways of thinking, and even just heal. Whether it's neuropathy or nerve inflammation, and even when I talk about lion's mane and the hericenones and erinacins, that's like one half of the big picture,
Right?
Because those are like the oils that you extract, and then you also have like the water extracts that are.
So talk about the extraction process, because you're doing
Yeah.
something a little different there, right? Because some people are I mean, what's the common way to take a lion's mane mushroom?
So
Because you're doing something different.
I'm doing something different with my procedure and the extraction process. Because the common way that people do it is maceration. Maceration is like the name for the common process.
Yeah, so what is that? What does that mean?
So maceration is like when people take like a large like gallon jar and then fill it up with all of their herb or mushroom biomass, and then they fill that up with ethanol or pretty much like a high proof alcohol. And they let the mushroom fruiting body soak in that alcohol for like 2 weeks at a time. And then within that 2 weeks daily, they're just shaking it all around, just shaking out all the goodies out of the fruiting body, right into the envelope, which is like the ethanol, the alcohol.
Okay.
And that's how people would normally do it.
Okay. How are you doing it?
How I'm doing it is a process that pulls a lot more extracts, and it's a process called sock slit extraction.
Okay. What's that mean?
Yeah, so the Soxhlet extractor is created by friends of on Soxhlet, who I believe is friends with Pasteur, who created pasteurization, that whole process. And the Soxhlet extractor, how I like to describe it to a lot of people is that it's kind of like a big, tall, fancy bong to some people, which I think a lot of those apparatuses for smoking were inspired by lab equipment originally. And it's pretty much like I have a heating mantle right here that pretty much creates the heat that heats up the solvent. And it also has a magnetic mechanism that stirs like a stir bar, like a little mini stir bar. And then in that, you have a flask, big round bottom flask, which is filled up with all of the ethanol that I use to extract it. And then it has a middle chamber that goes on top, which is the extraction chamber.
Okay.
And the extraction chamber is where I fill all of the biomass, like the lion's mane, ground up or broken down, reishi, whatever mushroom I'm really working with. And then the top piece is a condenser, which I pretty much just have like cold water running through it constantly. And what that does is that it keeps a cold water chamber at the top, and it's called a condenser because at the bottom flask, it's boiling all this ethanol really hot, and all those ethanol fumes are running up the siphon up to the top of the condenser. And because it's so cold, those hot gaseous like ethanol like fumes recondense back into liquid and then drip down into the middle chamber.
Okay.
So it's like a slow percolation drip system that slowly soaks and saturates the biomass and slowly pulls out the oils.
So, and that's different and better than just soaking them in the alcohol or whatever.
Yeah, because in alcohol it's stagnant. That's one thing. It's just sitting there.
Yep.
You can agitate it by shaking it, but there's no heat that's applied or
Yep.
cold temperatures.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to really pull the active compounds
Okay.
out of the matrix of the mushroom fibers.
And have you tested this to see that there is like a higher potency in the extract from one method to the other?
Yeah, so before I actually got into like starting this whole business, before I bought all my equipment, I did a lot of research on white papers. I would go on Google Scholar. Google Scholar just is a wealth of published papers, peer reviewed, and I use a also program called Sci-Hub that pretty much gives you access to these articles and lets you read them. So I use that to pretty much read a bunch of research into the different yields between maceration, Soxhlet extraction, ultrasonic extraction. Like there's a lot of different forms, even just pouring acidic enzymes on the mushroom fruiting body.
Okay.
So through multiple papers and reading all these different people's works and these scientists' work, what I found was that maceration just had the lowest yield, based on the factor that it's just a stagnant, extraction and there's no heat applied or anything. And what they found was that the Soxhlet extractor, countless times, just produced higher yields.
Okay. So now you have the extraction. What are you doing with it?
So I pretty much run the extraction for about 4 to 6 hours. So it's pretty much rinsing and washing that mushroom extract until it eventually all collects into like this bottom chamber. So it's like I'll have this big bottom flask at the end of the 6 hours filled with all this ethanol that just has a nice like crimson color if it's reishi, or like a nice golden color if it's lion's mane. And that's not the end, For some people, that make typical common tinctures, they just take the alcohol and then mix it with like the water tea extract they made and then just shake that up into a bottle. I kind of take it a step further and I like to like isolate those oils, kind of like cannabis extracts, they get those oil concentrates. I'm pretty much doing the same thing for mushrooms. So I take that ethanol saturated with the mushroom extracts and I pour it into a separate system, which is called an ethanol recovery system.
And it's separating the ethanol from the extract?
Yeah.
So you're just left with the extract.
It's like a metal crucible that I fill with ethanol, and then the system puts it under a vacuum. And then that vacuum pretty much lowers the boiling temp of the ethanol so that I can keep it low temps, get the ethanol boiling, and it just separates all of the ethanol to where eventually I just have pure, viscous, syrupy oil.
And so as you're saying all this, I'm like, how fascinating, because this is quite a process that you've learned and dove into. And you didn't go to school for this.
No, I went to school for psychology, actually.
Right.
I got my bachelor's in psychology at Eckerd College and minor in marketing.
So how much YouTube did it take to figure this out?
So there's actually almost like no YouTube videos on Soxhlet extraction.
Oh,
Yeah, it's if anything, it's like a 10-second video of an old man in a lab just saying, "Hey guys, here's the Soxhlet," and it's a small little one like this big. And it really doesn't tell you; it just explains it. And there's no like.
Is there
SOP.
anything proprietary about this process that you've made your own, or?
So a lot of different people use Soxhlet throughout the country to extract mushrooms. I mean, within the small community that mushrooms is, there's a handful of people that use Soxhlet. Each of us have different procedures, whether it's the type of Soxhlet we have in terms of the size of it, whether we're using different temperatures for the Soxhlet. different solvents. Like I could be using methanol in my sock slit, or another person could be using ethanol. Like there's
Which
different.
one do you use?
I use ethanol
Okay.
with plans to eventually use methanol because it's shown to pull a lot more yield.
Is it more expensive?
It can be a little more expensive, and it's just one of those like uncommon solvents that people just think of as like a chemical. Like people think ethanol, like, oh, okay, alcohol, but when they hear methanol, they're like, whoa, dude, like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I want that in my body.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like there's more extra effort and tedious work to make sure that you purge out all of the solvent and chemical so that there's like no trace amounts left over and just the pure medicine that they want.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, so now you've mastered this sock how do you say it?
Sock slit.
Sock slit
Yeah.
process of extraction of lion's mane or reishi, whatever the other mushroom compound that you're using. And now so you have this pure extract of lion's mane.
Mhm.
What are you doing with it then?
So once I have the pure extract, I pretty much have free reign with what I can infuse it into. And like the goal of Mad Mycologist has always been to like innovate unique ways to create like consumable envelopes to put these extracts in, so that one, people feel them and that they're bioavailable, and also that whatever envelope I'm putting it into also has like a wide synergy of different ingredients that kind of help boost its properties and enhance it more. So right now, at least, we're infusing it into like tinctures. So I pretty much infuse those pure extracts into high concentrations into vegetable glycerin tinctures as like a simple, sweet way to dose up of pure extracts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this something that you do the 3 on 2 off or routine with this?
Yeah. I'll have 3 days where I dose up in the morning, and then I'll dose up midday, and then that usually carries just my state of mind, the mycelium mind that I feel, kind of carry throughout the day. And I'll feel calm, I feel good, and I'm like, all right, sweet. Like, this is my ideal, like, nootropic regimen.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And, there's so many different ways I can go with this brand, and this product, if you might call it. I have a lot of plans to infuse it into, like, different foods, different, like, gels, just unique ways to consume it in the body.
Right. I mean, you got the pure extract, and now the food is your oyster, I guess, right? In terms of what you want to do with it.
Yeah, because like as of recently, I've just been putting so much interest and passion to the gut microbiome. Like I think the gut microbiome is kind of like the foundation of like our health and well-being.
Okay, so what are you doing with that?
So with the gut microbiome, to give a little bit of an idea for anybody that doesn't know like what that is, the gut microbiome is pretty much like our whole digestive system, specifically centered around like the small intestine and large intestine, where the gut microbiome has billions of different bacteria inside of our gut. And all these bacteria are responsible for producing 90% of our serotonin production in our body, dopamine, GABA, like all those brain chemicals that, regulate our mood, make us feel good, make us feel like we're in the game cognitively, and also just, pleasure and reward through dopamine, like those good feelings. And then GABA kind of just calms down the nervous system whenever it's too excited. So we have all these important bacteria that pretty much dictate like our mood and our hunger.
There is some recent studies, I believe, that come out that show how the gut influences the mind and vice versa. And
Like the second brain.
Exactly.
essentially.
Yeah. I mean, you get nervous or something, people's stomachs get upset. At least mine does. When I get nervous, my stomach starts getting all kinds of crazy. And
Yeah, it starts making all kinds of sounds. Like, hey, buddy, what's
yeah,
going on down there?
yeah. Or vice versa. You eat something bad, now you're mentally not there, not in it. Some brain fog.
Yeah.
So the two are definitely talking to each other.
Definitely. It's the second brain. It's the second largest nervous system in our body, which is called the ENS. It's the enteric nervous system, which connects to our brain through the vagus nerve, which people like Wim Hof, they believe through his breath work, he tapped into the vagus nerve, and tapping into that nerve is like controlling the subconscious mind and helping regulate your body on your own conscious free will. So what I'm believing is that mushroom extracts have this ability to nourish our gut microbiome through specifically the beta glucans of the mushroom. And the beta glucans are like the water-based extracts. So anytime I'm using hot water to make a tea out of mushrooms, I'm pulling these, water-soluble beta glucan extracts.
And that's good to help the microbiome.
Yes, exactly. Because studies have found that both lactobacillus bacteria as well as bifidobacterium bacteria digest and ferment these mushroom extracts.
Okay, so what protocol are we doing to heal up the microbiome using mushrooms from what you know?
Yeah, so I would say it's kind of like a daily dosing of mushroom beta glucan extracts, whether I'd say probably around 1 gram a day would be like an ideal medicinal dosage. And I like to think of the gut microbiome as like a garden. You know, like if you plant seeds in a garden, like you're not gonna have an avocado tree the next day. You know, you're not gonna have, you know, passion fruits right off the vine the next day. Like it's a garden, so you gotta water it over time. You gotta nourish it, give it good soil, give it good organic fertilizer, give it good water, make sure it gets sunlight, and like over time, with all of those nourishments, eventually like you'll get your fruit. So I like to think of the gut microbiome in that same way, that like when we're dosing with mushroom extracts, people expect that like, all right, I'm just gonna take my mushroom extract today and like I'll feel great and I won't need to go back to it for like another month or so or week or so. It's more so like if you want the long term gains, you know, you gotta make long term effort, you know. And it's kind of like
Because it has to heal.
it has to heal, you know,
Yeah.
because we're also bio individual. We all have so many different traumas or whatever toxic exposures that make my microbiome more sensitive than another person's. So like I might need 6 months of mushroom extracts every day to really nourish and build out my gut microbiome back to a healthier baseline. Another person might just need 3 months because they've been living relatively healthy their whole life, weren't exposed to a whole lot, and just need a little bit of a pick me up out of like a brief gut, you know, episode.
So can you identify any ways of that you felt differently, either cognitively or physically, since you incorporated these mushroom extracts into your life?
Yeah, definitely. I would say for me, it's been like a big cognitive enhancement. You know, like I'm someone who has experienced anxiety, you know, brain fog, you know, and just a variety of things that just make it hard for me to focus, you know, especially if it's like low testosterone. So I'm always like trying to figure out ways to like, how can I center my routine around something that's going to help me like increase that, you know, or enhance my perception. So I feel like mushrooms give me a cognitive boost. They also relax my body a lot because I suffer from like neuropathy, nerve impingements, and that can tense up my nervous system and make it hard to regulate itself and like calm down. So like I'll feel physically tense. Whenever I feel physically tense, I feel like my brain gets, you know, physically tense as well and worked up. And then when I feel like I have these like warning signals from my body, my brain is like preoccupied with that pain. You know, if my brain's always preoccupied and giving energy and awareness and attention to that, then that's just 20% less mental energy that I'm not able to have access to, you know, in my daily life. So like overall, it's just been a game of like, you know, stimulating, you know, nerve growth in my brain, stimulating relaxation throughout my body by healing the nerves there, regenerating it. And then overall, just by consuming these mushroom extracts, I feel like by nourishing the gut microbiome, I'm just having healthier serotonin levels, dopamine levels, more regulated immune system, which is what that also does at the same time. And yeah, just it's been.
So you're feeling good.
I'm feeling good, you know, overall. You know,
Yeah.
I can move and get out there and work out. It just enhances like how much I feel in my body and in control of my body and my thoughts and grounded in my thoughts.
So you notice the difference when have you gone a long spurt without taking it to kind of experiment?
Yeah. Yeah. I've definitely gone like, you know, a couple week bouts or a month without it because I like to, as much as I believe in mushrooms, I also want to find my own way as well.
Right.
You know, I think whether it's getting enough sunlight first thing in the morning throughout the day, whether it's drinking enough water and making sure it's clean water, or making sure I'm eating all the proper foods to nourish, you know, like, or moving enough, getting outside and hitting a workout, you know, primal movements, you know, going to the gym, functional movements. Like, those are like my pillars. And I always want to nourish my pillars first before I invite or introduce anything else to try and enhance that.
Yeah, of course. Just make it, like you said, an enhancement, not dependent.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
that's part of the education I'm trying to bring with mushrooms. You know, I don't want it to be a crutch for everybody. I don't want people to be dependent, but like I want to encourage people to live the best life they can and, you know, have the best habits and routines for eating and sunlight and movement, and then bring mushrooms in as this tool and enhancement to only make it even more better. And if you're reaching your boundaries and your limits, mushrooms might be able to like help you push a little bit more past that. You know, if you are doing everything right.
So now, what about the magic mushroom, as people like to call them?
Yeah.
What's the scoop on those? Because there's a lot of new research out about that. How deep are you in that?
Yeah, so I mean, psilocybin mushrooms fascinate me. I mean, I truly think they're the future of like mental health, as well as like physical body healing. And a lot of studies are just showing that it stimulates the growth of new neurons in the brain, specifically in the hippocampus, which the hippocampus is responsible for short-term and long-term memory formation, as well as the emotions associated with that. And also, it's just shown to create a richer network of brain connectivity and communication. So we have more of these wholesome, experiences, you know, or these wholesome kind of like multifaceted perspectives rather than the one perspective that we kind of operate from by default. So I think it has a good way of helping us like wiggle out of that default mode network way of thinking into entertaining new perspectives as well as cultivating more empathy.
Yes.
And I think
It's
empathy
the ego killer.
yeah, you know, it opens up and loosens the ego, and then you can adopt newer patterns or newer ways of thinking and communicating.
Isn't that fascinating? The ego. Like when people think, I always people think of ego as a bad thing, but they don't understand. The ego is how we identify as Sebastian and Ryan.
It's the characters and personas that have.
Without it, we would not have that.
Exactly. You know, it's built through experiences, and they shape us and who we are. So, like, I just think that they have this unique ability to really, like, help us dive into that subconscious and find the parts of ourselves that we love and want to hold on to, and then the parts of ourselves that might be more self-destructive or just unproductive or unmotivated. It helps us bring ourselves to the root of that belief and why that's an echoing belief in our mind.
Yeah, the studies have been fascinating with like those PTSD, anxiety, and tons. I mean, the list goes on and on of the mental illnesses that the people are using it for.
I mean, like
Harvard studies. I mean, this is it's crazy to think that they were and they still are, Scheduled 1 drug, illegal, and now that the science is coming out on it, it's like, wait a minute, we've actually missed out on like 30, 40 years of research on these compounds that could be very healing and better than pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, certainly.
That's something we talked about on the phone. That a lot of what you're doing is to help people understand that there's alternative to the pharmaceutical drugs.
That's been the biggest thing. You know, I feel like the pharmaceutical industry hasn't done right by a lot of people, you know, whether it's, profit over health and healing, and keeping people dependent on a cycle of dependence of these, treatments and medicines that don't necessarily get to the root cause. It's like, hey, doctor, I have this issue. All right, well, here's this. All right, is this going to heal me? No, you got to be on this for the rest of your life, really. You're like, whoa, what?
Right.
I got to change my whole life now?
Yeah, and I don't want anyone here to think that I'm not giving any medical advice. I don't know anything, right, from that standpoint. But it would be good when the medical professionals have another realm that is natural, that's not a pharmaceutical to prescribe, or maybe it's a therapy session with, psilocybin or MDMA or, any of these other compounds that could help in, maybe a couple sessions, and then you're healed in a way that allowed you to go on with your life without taking an SSRI or something like that for the rest of your life.
Exactly, pretty much, and that's why I'm grateful for peer-reviewed science, because it's here to bridge that gap between, the woo-woo, spiritual, indigenous people that have been saying, like, hey, we've had these medicines for thousands of years, we know it heals, and we finally now have science and peer-reviewed science to, like, kind of validate that for, the wider public or Western society that feel like they need the science. Where's the science? Show us the science, like that's kind of echoing out there as of at least in the past 3 years. That's been echoing more. So I'm glad that we can bridge those two worlds and have some validity behind.
For this episode, let's make sure, team, that we get some white papers, Google Scholar, let's put it in the below so that we know we're not blowing smoke up anyone's ass. Yeah,
there's plenty out there for people to read.
Find in the description below. Go read up on it. It's pretty fascinating.
Exactly.
New stuff that's come out in the last few years. Okay, I want to talk about St. Pete, but before we do, you got something interesting here on the table. What'd you bring in for us today?
Yeah, so I brought in 2 things today. The first thing that I brought here is my first ever collaboration between the Mad Mycologists and Beach Kombucha.
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's pretty much our first flavor that we created called Pure Vitality. And we call it that because we believe that that's what it'll embody and embark on people who drink it. And it's pretty much a fusion of wild harvested reishi mushrooms that I extracted in my laboratory, and then we essentially infuse these reishi extracts into the kombucha fermentation process. So,
okay.
Yeah, so like the lactobacillus that I mentioned earlier, as well as the bifidobacterium.
Yep.
All those cultures are in the kombucha fermentation.
And the kombucha is already something that's good for the gut as it is. I mean, this is like gut health on steroids.
Exactly. It's the whole synergized mutual symbiotic fusion of the two.
Beautifully said. Okay, well, let's give it a try.
Yeah.
I'm a little nervous, but also excited. I haven't had kombucha in a while, but we'll see how this goes. Okay, so what is there a flavor to this? Or are we just... Oh man, you're going full. I don't know if I want. Don't pour that much, just in case. I hope I love it, but just in case.
Let me one.
That's good.
So yeah, this is a flavor. We mixed 2 more ingredients in there.
Mm-hmm.
First ingredient is cacao.
Okay.
You familiar with cacao?
No, tell me about it.
So cacao is pretty much what all chocolate comes from around the
Mhm.
world. Cacao is pretty much like this pod, this big, tough, rough pod that grows on branches of trees out in Central, South America, even in Africa. And it's pretty much where all chocolate comes from. And when you open up the pod, you have this like row of like fruit, like these little nodules with like this white fruit all around it. And then under that white fruit pulp is like the cacao bean
Oh,
or seed.
okay, that's cool. I knew cacao it was chocolate, but I didn't
Yeah.
know the hell that all.
Yeah, so they take all those cacao beans, they roast them, they process them, they muddle them until they eventually have that cacao paste that is then used to make chocolate,
Okay,
sugar, and
that's
all
good
that.
to know. That's
Yeah,
good to know. Okay,
packed with trace minerals, copper, magnesium, all that good stuff. Theobromine, theophylline, which gives energy, opens up the lungs. So it's just a well-rounded adaptogenic herb.
okay.
And then
Are
lastly,
we adding this thing to it, or are we just gonna drink it the way it is?
certainly, I'm gonna enhance it.
Oh,
I'm
yeah?
gonna enhance it.
Okay.
And lastly, the last ingredient is blueberries,
Oh, I love blueberries.
organic
One of
blueberries.
the best snacks you can eat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we infuse that flavor to give it a little bit of a sweet profile and just enhance the antioxidant kind of, healing properties essentially.
I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Should I
Yeah.
try it before? Because you brought this unlabeled special secret shelf.
Unreleased.
Unreleased,
Yeah.
unlabeled. What were you calling it before?
Unlabeled, unreleased lion's mane extract.
Okay.
Yeah.
The secret sauce.
The secret sauce, if you may call it.
Yeah.
It's certainly like that. So we can add it right now or after if you'd like to try
Let
it.
me give it a go without. Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers. Yes, you're welcome.
Oh, it's good. Oh, yeah, it's good. Let's see if I can describe the flavor. A little bit of blueberry in there, maybe. Kind of sweet. Not too vinegary. Some kombuchas are really vinegary.
Yeah, that's why I love Beach. They
Yeah.
have perfected
No,
their
Beach,
craft.
good job. Good job.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good.
Do you taste the chocolate in there at all?
Maybe a little. Maybe a little. I don't
It's
know
subtle.
if you told to be honest, if you didn't tell me there was chocolate, I don't know that I would have been pulling that out, but maybe my taste buds aren't working great.
Just start looking for it once you know about it.
Right, yeah, get it swished around, get it on the back of the tongue there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh,
So yeah,
so go ahead.
I got this a little addition, a little bit of enhancement. Pretty much a lion's mane extract that I made as of recently, with mushrooms that I got from Texas from a grower out there.
Okay. Yeah, that's why. So where do you get your mushrooms? That's a good question.
So it's a mix of wild foraged. I have a variety of kind of secret little locations that I've kind of found naturally throughout time and space, and I just keep them in my back pocket
Got it.
for whenever I want to go out there and forage during season.
Is there anyone else in St. Pete doing what you're doing that you know of?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So St. Pete, listen up. If you need some mushroom extract, Sebastian is your guy. Your local supply.
Yes. Yes. All high quality, organic.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm sure that's why you're keeping it a secret where you're getting your stuff.
Yeah, and when it comes to not wild, I also go to trusted farmers
Mhm.
that they can tell me it's organic. They know what goes into it, because the forest can't always produce exactly what I need, and
Yeah.
to deliver people.
Yeah.
So
So do you travel to go get it?
yeah, I've traveled all around Florida to get these mushrooms. I've gone all the way to Asheville, North Carolina, which I have 2 secret reishi spots out there that it's like a utopia of reishi.
And how do you go about finding that? Do you is there some climate that you're looking for? You're just wandering in the woods. I mean, what's the process to find?
So with reishi, it's a summer mushroom.
Yeah.
So I know in the summertime I can find reishi out in the forests, and I typically look for hardwood trees. Hardwood trees are typically where a lot of mushrooms grow on.
Mhm.
That's their preferred, food on their menu.
Mhm.
And then outside of that, when I'm looking for reishi specifically in Asheville, I look for hemlock trees.
Okay, dude, the amount of research you've done is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's been a rabbit hole. I get so excited.
Yeah.
I could talk for 3 hours about mushrooms.
I believe it. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, and that's been the biggest thing. Staying focused.
Yeah,
in
I bet.
Such a multifaceted world that
Yeah.
has so many things I want to play with. I'm
Right.
like, all right, I can't spread myself thin.
Yeah.
This is really cool, but let me see this through.
Yeah,
and
focus
finish
on
it.
one of those things first and dive deep on that. You are becoming an expert in this extract process. That's really unique.
Yeah,
As more people learn about the benefits of it, they'll want to add it to their daily, semi-daily regiment, right? And
Definitely.
foods, things like that. Maybe some restaurants you're already partnering with Beach. I mean, it's really cool.
yeah. It's been amazing. I feel like I'm myceliating the bay.
I
Just
like that.
creating
In
this
no
knowledge.
way, I'm sure. Did you think while you were in Spain that you'd be where you're at right now?
Not at all. To be honest, like when I was living there, like I was convinced I was going to start a kombucha company, ironically enough and synchronistically enough.
Yeah.
I literally was brewing kombucha in my college dorm room the months before that, selling kombucha out of my fridge to people. And I literally got to Spain and I was like, I still want to do kombucha. So I convinced my mom. I was like, "Hey, mom, like, can you please just ship out all my kombucha gallon jars to Spain?"
To Spain. Oh my god.
She's like, "Honey, that's like $90 to send out all these jars." I was like, "Mom, like, you're contributing to a powerful mission right now.
Yeah.
Like, you need to understand what this is working towards." And she's like, "All right, if you really want it and believe it, like, I'll send it out to you." I'm like, "Thank you, thank you." So like I set up a
Shout out, mom.
shout out, mom, Sandra Cotto. That's my mama.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I was fermenting kombucha in my closet with a heater in there. My roommates just complaining about these smells coming out of my closet
Oh, I bet.
sometimes. Yeah. So I took 2 classes. One was crop protection and food production, which is what gave me the hands-on experience with the petri dishes. And then I had another class which was color in food, which is all about the science of like what makes the colors that are in the food, what are those chemicals that make those colors, and then different lighting that could enhance like the color of the food you're presenting.
It's cool. Let's add a little of that.
Let's
So
add
does
this
this
right
have a
now.
little flavor? What's the, or is it, I mean, what's the, am I going to notice that it's in there?
So
Oh, you got a whole thing. Yeah, I only got a little bit.
So this is made with vegetable glycerin, and it's pretty much like a syrupy medium for the extracts to be enveloped in.
Okay.
So it's very sweet,
Oh, it is.
and it's not harsh like alcohol tinctures.
Okay.
So
I've never done a tincture, so I don't know. I'm a rookie.
yeah, no, super simple. It's gonna infuse right into that kombucha nicely for you.
Yeah.
And the lion's mane extract in there is around 50 to 75 milligrams
Okay.
of a dose of lion's mane
We
extract.
need that. We need the brain to keep working.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure you got more podcasts today. Lined
Yeah, I
up.
got one more after this. So yeah, this is good. This is good.
Yeah,
I don't
so-
taste it. I mean, it did make it a little sweeter.
Yeah, the lion's
Yeah.
mane is just super subtle, and the vegetable glycerin is so sweet that it kind of you taste more of that than the
Yeah.
actual extract.
Dude, this is cool. This is
Yeah.
cool. Pour a little more of that in here.
Yeah, I got you.
We're going now.
Brain boosting. We're
Brain
going on a
boosting.
trip.
Don wants to try something too. Yeah, well,
Yeah, we'll share it with the whole stew.
Yeah. Take care of the squad. Yeah. Love it. Okay, so St. Pete. So when did you came here only for school, or where are you originally from?
I am originally from Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Okay. So
Um,
came here for school.
Came here for college when I was 18 years old. Yeah. And yeah, so when I was 18, I decided that I wanted to go to college. And at the time, I thought I was going to go to Colorado because I was pretty much deep into the world of cannabis, was super passionate about that as a plant medicine and healer. Thought I was going to go to Colorado, start a weed farm and everything. I was like, I'm going to go to college there. I'm going to like go under the wing of some guy who has a big farm and just learn, the tricks of the trade and how they do that and how businesses ran in that world. But after getting denied by like 2 colleges in Colorado, I was like, all right, maybe this is a sign. Maybe I need to kind of regroup, and maybe I don't want to be this far from my mom either, because like I'm like a mama's boy at heart.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
I grew up with her only. My parents are separated, so we're super close. And she wanted me to be close. She's like, honey, like I support your dreams, but like I would love it if you were, more closer.
Don't leave the state.
Don't leave the state. Pretty much, she's saying like I'd rather you be a drive away than a fly away.
Fair enough.
So that's when we were at Nova Southeastern University in Davie and at a college convention, and we happened to see Eckerd College posted up there, and it caught her eye first, and she's like, "Oh, Eckerd, like I know that name," and I was like, "Oh, really?" She's like, "Yeah, when I was growing up in Tarpon Springs, they had Eckerd Pharmacy at the time."
Okay.
And apparently Eckerd Pharmacy was like a household name around here back in the day for pharmacies until CVS bought them out, and that's how they disappeared essentially.
Funny and coincidental that your mom recognizing a pharmacy is what brought you to Eckerd and started this journey of you now going against the pharmaceuticals.
Exactly.
Did you ever piece that together?
No, that's why I just had my reaction.
Yeah.
Like, this is crazy. I needed this moment to bring that realization.
Yeah. Talkin St. Pete brought it for you.
Exactly. So, she recognized it, and what we found out later was that Eckerd College used to be Florida Presbyterian College. So it was like a, religiously associated college up until John Eckerd, the one who started Eckerd Pharmacy, donated so much money to the college that it became Eckerd College.
Okay, got it.
So
that's one way to do it.
Yeah.
Give enough money, you get to name it.
Exactly. Just like the stadium, you
Yep,
know,
yep.
whatever it may be.
Yep.
So yeah, I ended up going to Eckerd and knew I wanted to study psychology because the human mind always fascinated me.
Likewise, it's extremely fascinating.
Yeah, I was like, if I can understand people, then I can navigate this world a lot easier with whatever I'm trying to do. So I went for a psychology major, studied there for 4 years, lived on campus. It was a small campus, only like maybe 1,200 students on the campus. And most students 90% of students live on campus for all 4 years. So it's a bubble.
And then you decided to stay here.
Yeah.
Why?
So I just thought St. Pete was such a unique city. Like I came from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, which is a little bit of a bigger city, a little more fast paced, not as much as Miami, but still growing along that same frame and following Miami. So it felt a little superficial. And I felt like a lot of people were kind of disconnected from like Mama Gaia, nature, earth. And like I'm just such like an earth guy, and you know.
Dude, you got tattoos of mushrooms on your hands.
Yeah, it gives it away. You know, I can't hide it. You know,
there is no hiding it. Yeah.
So you know, when I was like in St. Pete, I love that. You know, I used to come to this area a lot when I was younger because my mom was raised in Tarpon Springs for high school, pretty much, and my grandma lived in Tampa, and my grandpa in Bradenton. So I had many orbits around this area. And when I was in college here and visiting downtown, going to the Dali Museum, I
love the Dali.
Love the Dali. Super trippy, a lot of that art, and I'm deep into the world of dreaming too, so I've connected with Dali on that
Dreaming,
sense.
on his shirt, folks. Look right there. Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah, you know, I love that St. Pete was a small city, relatively small city at the time compared to Fort Lauderdale. I liked the slower pace that it felt like. I loved all the street art. The murals are what captivated me. I just think it added a lot of personality and life to the city.
Did you see our reel? It's one of our best performing reels right now.
Okay. With
Derek,
St. Paint Arts?
Yeah, Derek Donnelly and I were talking about how there's over 600 murals in St. Pete.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That's wild. And I saw it, you know, and like that was a personality of St. Pete that I liked because I came from South Florida where we have Wynwood in Miami. I don't know if you know Wynwood.
No.
Wynwood is kind of a small artsy community in Miami, north of downtown, where it's just littered with murals all throughout. You know, Banksy, a lot of these other artists, you know, known for making their way through there and leaving an impact on that scene. So I'd always drive down there just to go literally just to see the murals and then get food and then
That's
go
cool.
home, you know?
Yeah. And now you can do that in St. Pete.
Exactly. I'm like, wow, like I don't need Wynwood. Like I have this in St. Pete, you know, and it's a lot more chill and just like less crazy melting pot energy of, you know, Miami, you know, which can be, you know, hair splitting when you're trying to drive through there and, you know, get through all that sea ofness.
Yes.
So I like the art. I like that it was by the beaches. Me personally, in my opinion, I think the West Coast beaches of Florida are the best beaches.
No doubt. Hands down.
Yeah.
Try to argue that. You're going to lose every day.
You can't argue against the baby powder sand that is just super soft. And because it's so soft and white, it doesn't get as hot as like the East Coast sand.
Oh, yeah. It's brutal.
Yeah. Midday, I can actually walk on West Coast beach sand.
Yep.
And on Fort Lauderdale Beach, I'm like tiptoeing and running across to get to my towel.
I think that's why I could be way wrong, but I think Crocs, the shoe, started off as a shoe to be able to walk across hot sand.
That's all to defend the feet. That was
that's what I'm saying. Well, you don't have that problem. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just thought the water was calmer and nicer. You know, East Coast is a lot more surfing, stronger waves from, you know.
That would be the only argument. If you like the surf, like the surf, you know, whether it's for jet skiing, I'm a big freestyle jet ski guy, or for actual surfing, whatever. Yeah, we don't have many waves over here.
Exactly. I'm not a big surfer. I just love to swim. That's where I feel most alive and free. I'm just out in open water. I like to go out to the buoy all the way as far as I can and just be out in open water swimming. And I feel like I could do that here, you know.
Love it.
In paradise.
Okay, so St. Pete's got your heart. You're staying here, but what do you think about the changes that are happening? Because, I mean, since you've been here, you've watched it. I've asked everyone kind of this question, but how do you feel about the change?
Yeah, so I've been in St. Pete for around 7 years now, and I've definitely noticed a change. You know, when I came here, it was a lot of smaller town vibes, and I really love that St. Pete was a city that valued local businesses. Like I like the keep St. Pete local movement. Like that's what I first started following on Instagram. And I just thought it was unique that like I could find things here that I can't find anywhere else. Like that's unique.
Like you.
Like me. Yeah. Like that's why I related to it. You know, I was like, I want to bring something that you can't find anywhere else, you know? And because St. Pete had that, I'm like, wow, this is really sweet. You know, and there wasn't like these big skyscrapers like Miami or Fort Lauderdale, and you get lost under all these towering, you know, and you see more stranger faces, than common and familiar ones. So as of recently, it's certainly been a little challenging for me, with my vision of staying in St. Pete and why I initially stayed here, which was to appreciate the local small businesses, the quieter life, less traffic, and you know, in the end of the day, expansion is inevitable. People want to grow, people want to add more new things to the land that we have to make it more unique. So like I'm all for expansion, and growing and making the city more unique and diverse. I just think that like we need to be a little bit more intentional and have like better discernment with like how we decide to do that and how we utilize resources, how we utilize the land. What can the infrastructure handle? Like literally,
That's one thing that comes up a lot.
whether it's sewage,
Mhm.
which I know that's a big thing. I mean, we've already had so many sewage busts throughout the bay that just contaminates the water. And I mean, back in the day, it used to just be plots of land with homes all next to each other, and on this, within this acre of land, you could fit 1 or 2 homes, and like that's all the sewage you're going to get within that land. But now within 1 or 2 acres of land, we can just stack it up and go all the way up. But can that land really facilitate that? Like what is the threshold
Yeah.
and how high can you go up?
The engineering behind that is fascinating. I'm sure whatever they're doing to figure that out, because you talk about the skyscrapers are coming.
Yeah.
They're coming.
Yeah, especially with right where that park used to be across from Pinwalk and Bowl near the BB&T, that 40-story one that's going up.
Yeah, 46 stories. It's 400 Central.
Wow.
Yeah, over 300 condominiums going in there.
Yeah, that's got Miami energy for me.
It's going to change the skyline big time. It's going to be the
huge.
tallest building in downtown.
All the walking area around that is going to be insane.
Oh, yeah, because it's all going to be retail at the bottom.
Exactly. So like I worry about big chains coming in, which
I don't know that will happen.
mm-hmm.
I'm real curious to see if that happens.
Yeah.
Because I think downtown does a good job. I have a buddy, shout out JP. He wants to possibly open something that's a chain. I'm not going to say it in case he decides to do it. But I'm like, there's no chains, national chains downtown.
True.
Not close, like in the main central. But you don't find a Subway.
Maybe BurgerFi, if anything.
Yeah, and that's that's like on the fence there. Like it is but it's not like a McDonald's or a Subway.
Yeah, which is why I can accept it, and I've eaten there. To be honest,
Right,
I've got a burger there. So.
Yeah, so it's interesting to think about the possible change. The one thing Max had said that he wanted is an Apple store, right? But so I think that if something like that happens, then the big boxes are going to come.
True, yeah. Which I know there's talks of that possibly going where the sundial is.
Yeah, so there's all. So it hopefully our local government keeps it local because it is what keeps it special.
Like if we could have an Apple store and still keep it local, let's do that because I don't want to go to Tampa
I know,
or Sarasota every time.
It's tough because what happens is that once you let one of them in, the rents go up.
Exactly.
And now the locals can't afford it, and it pushes
Exactly.
them out. So there has to be some type of regulations, but it's hard. I mean, it's this push and pull because think about it, if you're in the business of developing a building, and you're trying to maximize your return on that at some level.
Yeah.
Your Apple shows up and wants to cut you a fat check, or you have the local ice cream parlor that's paying a fraction.
Yeah.
It's at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, money motivates. So
Definitely.
but the thing that can stop is government regulation.
Yeah, government regulation, the community making its voice heard as much as possible, that they feel strongly about this issue. And yeah, I just think, a lot of money can bend a lot of wills, and I just, wouldn't want to see anything change.
Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be
like,
the next 3 to 5 years. I mean, the last 3 to 5 years in St. Pete, I haven't been here for all that, has already been interesting to what's happened downtown.
Yeah.
But it'll be like the next, I think, it's going to be even crazier because the landscape of the visual aspect of it is really going to change. The amount of new businesses that are going to be able to enter. Then, I mean, you bring in one building of 300 new residents. How many cars and traffic does it add to that area?
Exactly. Which I feel like parking, all that, it's already been a thing, and
although that hasn't. I was just having this conversation yesterday because I came here from Philadelphia.
All right.
That's a city.
All right. That's a big, yeah.
So when you
that's
talk
fair.
about parking here in St. Pete, I'm like, nah, we got plenty of parking.
Relatively speaking, yeah. When if I think back to Miami, I'd be like, no, parking is pretty decent here. It's not that bad.
It's not bad at all, man. You can drive up and down Central on a Tuesday and find parking.
I still find parking. That's not even like what I want to really complain about either. But yeah, I just think
It's we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
I love my local businesses. I love my local kava bars. I'm always posted up there,
I
you
bet.
know, and I love that feel good kind of like community feeling, you know, like as long as we can keep that kind of
Yeah.
feeling. You
And
know?
shout out to Beach Kombucha. I'm digging this.
You like it?
Yeah, it's smooth. It's not. There's some kombuchas. I mean, you get some like Whole Foods or whatever, and they're not all that
Either a
great.
super carbonated bite or very sugary.
Or vinegary.
Or
and just-
vinegary.
yeah, just you. Oh, I mean, you can smell it when you open it, right? It's like whoa.
Yeah, it
Or
tickles
just-
the even
Oh,
nose. I'm
yeah.
like, oh man.
Get you a little bit. Okay. I ask everyone this question: what's your favorite place to eat in St. Pete?
Soul Bistro.
Shout out Debbie and Ron.
Hands down, without a doubt, Soul Bistro.
It's good.
I got the Lion's Mane chicken parmesan there. Phenomenal.
Did you supply the lines, man?
I did not
Oh,
actually.
come on, we gotta set
Yeah.
that up.
Microfarm is here on the future,
Okay.
near future. That was actually locally out of Tampa.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, another great guy. I know him
Okay,
too.
okay,
He's
good.
talked to me. He's sent me people my way.
Okay,
so
good.
All the mushroom people support each other. Like
Yeah.
we're one big mycelium network.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
awesome. I love that.
Exactly. But great place. Seoul is my opinion. I value high quality food, organic food,
Mm-hmm.
intentionally crafted meals. And I feel like it's the one place in St. Pete that
You gotta
can
be
deliver
careful. I mean,
that.
I want to blow up their business, but a lot of people have been talking about it on here, and I want to be able to make sure I can get in there still and get a table. you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. Give them too much. Wait, what about me? I want to get in here
yeah.
and enjoy a good meal like I used to.
No, they deserve it. They did a phenomenal job there, and their vision and their craft is really good. So no, that's a great spot.
Definitely.
Great spot. Okay. Any other great local spots that you like to visit, whether it's food or any other shops or anything like that?
Yeah, so I am back and forth between two kava bars, Grassroots on Central in the Edge District, as well as Driftwood
Yeah.
as well.
Maybe you can speak on that a little bit because
Yeah.
there's a kava bar I feel like on every corner in St. Pete. And if you're not familiar, like anyone listening to this show that's not living here right now probably doesn't even know what the heck kava is.
Yeah.
So why are there so many here? Do you know?
That's a good question. I mean, I feel like Florida's just always been this wild west of unique things and businesses to bring here and start here. And at the same time, I think Florida also has like a large population of, you know, statistically, possibly alcoholics and drug addicts. I mean, I know there's like an opioid crisis that was brought in here, oxycodone, all of that. And I think what kava and kratom serve is like a natural alternative to drinking, as well as, you know, getting off opiates. And I think a lot of the sober community that's getting away from alcohol and no longer consumes alcohol has now found like a safe haven and new drink to have that still makes them feel good and social and relaxed, but is not going to be detrimental to their health or, you know, just to a variety of things, how they feel. So I think for them,
I'm
it's
going to have to
that.
get one of those guys on here because we got to dive into that world a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a whole rabbit hole in itself.
I'll find one of them. One of the owners of one of those spots, and we'll dive, just as we dove in on the mushroom world, we'll dive in on the world of kava.
Yeah.
See what that's all about.
It's like a new age internet cafe at this point.
Yeah.
And you can get work done or you can just relax and
And I know a
socialize.
lot of people that, I mean, it's a hangout.
Mhm.
It's a community.
You see a lot of the same faces too.
Oh,
there
I know. I
every
live across
time.
the street from one now.
Oh, okay, where's that?
Yeah, Grassroots.
Grassroots.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
nice. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
my favorite spot that I started
Yep.
at.
Yep.
so.
Yep. Awesome. Let's think. Is there anything else that I normally ask that we're missing? I don't think so, man. You've dropped bombs on here of tons of knowledge of the mushroom world.
Yeah,
I
there's a
appreciate
lot.
that. Yeah, no, and you're well versed in it. You're well spoken on it. You can tell you definitely know your stuff. Where can people find you?
People can find me on Instagram at the Mad Mycologists. Pretty much just like the Mad Scientist, but the Mad Mycologist. THEMAD Mycologist, spelled MYCOLOGISTS.
There it is. There it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was one more thing that I wanted to share.
Please.
I feel like St. Pete is missing like one thing.
Yeah.
Um,
That is a question I ask. What is St. Pete missing?
yeah,
What is it?
Might be missing a few things, but my main thing is like more edible landscapes.
What do you mean by that?
So like more food forests
Got it.
throughout parks, and any sort of green space we have has the potential to be a food forest or to simply grow stuff we can actually eat.
Yes.
Rather than ornamentals, which are kind of like the most common thing, you know, like whenever there's any land development or park renovation, like they're putting in palm trees or magnolia trees or whatever it may be. It's most of the time ornamental. And I just wish we could see more like fruit trees along the sidewalks. Kind of like in Spain, you know, you can pull figs right off, the sidewalk.
That's cool.
Or if you're in Colombia, you can pull like mangoes right off the sidewalk, and they have moringa growing in the city center. And I'm
That
like,
is a different vibe.
Yeah.
That is a different vibe. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, and I just think
There are a
that-
lot of people's backyards that got fruit trees in them.
Yeah, I can't
But,
always reach over and try and get
I-
that mango, you know, as
yeah.
much as I want. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think we could create more of that in St. Pete. So there's more access to food, you know, whether it's for homeless population or even just in general, like encouraging more of a culture of people growing their own food and being more sustainable and self-sufficient. And just learn what it's like to grow your own food and get in touch with the land more.
And you're the first one to say that, and I think it's pretty unique. And you know, it's crazy. The first thing I thought of was like, yeah, I agree. And then you'd have fruit droppings all over the sidewalk, and then the bugs, and then the rodents. But I obviously Spain and other countries, they have that figured out.
works,
They
you
have
know?
it figured out. Yeah. So
Yeah,
if
I
you-
think there's something we can learn.
no, definitely.
You know,
I agree.
ways to do it. And if there's people that know it's there, then there'll be less on the ground and more in
Right,
people's
right,
hands.
because you'd be picking it up.
Yeah,
right.
I'll be there. So,
That's
yeah.
awesome. Oh, that's awesome. Well, appreciate you, Sebastian. Thank you for coming here, dropping all the knowledge on us. Go follow him at the Mad Mycologist. He's got some cool videos on there of the extraction process that he's using the
sock slit
extractor on there. Check that out.
Yeah.
Like, follow, comment, share with a friend. If they've made it this far, Sebastian, what should they comment below?
Any questions that you might have?
No. One word. One word.
One word.
What should they comment below? They're still listening. They're here with us right now. They're the real OG. They're the real fans. Mom,
Oh
I know
my
you're
God.
listening. One word.
One word.
Yeah.
Man, one word. I think it's two.
Go ahead.
Much love.
Much love. All right. Put much love in the comments if you're still here. We appreciate you. Again, if you need any type of real estate services, looking to buy, sell, invest, or you just have questions, find our contact information in the description below. We appreciate you so much for listening and sharing, and we'll see you on the next one.
Awesome.
Dude, that was great. That was
Yeah.
good. Dude, you were flowing.